Level 1. The candidate. You didn't apply. That's the first thing you need to understand. Nobody who ends up doing what you do applies. You were in your junior year of Georgetown, double major in Russian and economics, and somewhere between your third research paper on Soviet economic collapse and your second beer at a faculty mixer, someone noticed you. You didn't notice them noticing. That was the point. 3 weeks later, a professor you respect invites you to coffee. Dr. Harmon, visiting lecturer. Impeccable suit, forgettable face. The kind of handshake that tells you this person has been trained to make you feel immediately comfortable. You think it's about your thesis. It is not about your thesis. The card has no logo, just a phone number and 2 initials. You tell yourself it could be anything. A think tank, a consultancy, a very well-funded NGO. You flip through every reasonable explanation on the walk back to your dorm. You run out of reasonable explanations by the time you reach your door. You keep the card anyway. You call the number on a Tuesday. You don't know why Tuesday. Maybe because it felt like the least suspicious day. The voice on the other end is calm, neither male nor female in any memorable way. It gives you an address in Arlington and a time. Then it says, "Come alone, tell no one." You almost laugh. You do not laugh. Arlington. A building that looks like an insurance office, and probably is, on 3 floors. The 4th floor doesn't exist on the elevator panel. You take the stairs. You find the door. You knock. Later, you will understand that they watched you find the door. They were checking how long it took. The room has 2 chairs and a table. No windows. A woman who introduces herself as Nothing sits across from you and asks you questions for 90 minutes. Not interrogation questions. Worse. Personal ones. What do you want? What do you fear? If you found out your best friend was lying to you about something significant, what would you do? You answer honestly. That's your first mistake, and your first qualification. You leave after 90 minutes. Nobody shakes your hand. Nobody says, "We'll be in touch." You walk out into Arlington daylight and stand on the sidewalk for a full minute, not moving. A pigeon lands near your foot and looks at you with more personality than anyone in that room. You take the metro back. You don't tell anyone. 2 weeks of nothing. You start to think it was some elaborate prank or a test you failed. You go back to your thesis, Soviet economic collapse. The irony of your topic is not lost on you later. Systems that look permanent until they aren't. You write 8 pages in one night. Best work of your academic career. Distraction is a hell of a motivator. Then the email. No sender name. A university server address that stops existing by the time your IT department looks at it. The subject line is blank. The body contains 1 sentence and a date 3 days away. You read it 4 times. You delete it. You already memorized it on the first read. You always memorized things on the first read. That's why you're here. The second location is a diner in Alexandria. Vinyl booths, bottomless coffee, a pie case that rotates slowly, like it has somewhere to be. Dr. Harmon is there, and someone new, older, no introduction. He just slides a folder across the table and says, "He'd like to offer you a position. There's no job title, there's no HR department. If your parents ask, you work for the State Department." You look at the folder. You don't open it yet. Inside the folder, Nothing classified. A lease agreement for an apartment in D.C., a library card, a Metro pass, a Virginia driver's license with your face and a different last name, and a single index card. Learn to be unremarkable. You think, how hard can that be? You will spend the next decade finding out exactly how hard. You move into the apartment on a Friday, furnished, clean, anonymous. The neighbors will later describe you as quiet and polite and, "I think he worked in government or something." You unpack in 40 minutes. There isn't much to unpack. The person who lived here before left no trace. You understand now, that's also your job, leaving no trace. The training begins the following Monday, not at Langley, somewhere in Virginia that doesn't have a sign. You learn to walk differently, talk differently, order food differently. They are methodically and with great professionalism, sanding down every distinctive thing about you. You didn't think you had that many distinctive things. You were wrong. It takes months. Week 6. They show you a photograph of yourself taken 3 weeks ago, on a street you don't remember being watched on. You were looking the wrong direction, carrying a coffee cup, completely unaware. The instructor taps the photo and says, "This is what exposed looks like." You look at the photograph of yourself and feel nothing you recognize. Good. That's the first real compliment they've given you. End of level 1. You are not an agent. You are not a ghost. You are a candidate who passed enough tests to be handed more tests. But something has already shifted. In the way you sit in public spaces, the way you clock exits, the way you look at strangers and instinctively categorize them before you've formed a single conscious thought. You didn't ask for that. They installed it. And it doesn't uninstall. Ever. Level 2. The asset. The first thing they give you is a handler. Her name is Kessler. Probably not her real name. She looks at you the first day like you're a rental car she hasn't decided whether to abuse yet. You like her immediately. Your first 6 months are paperwork. Not the kind civilians mean. The kind where you memorize 17 biographies and then burn them. The kind where you learn 3 ways to order coffee and check without sounding like you learned it last Tuesday. Kessler quizzes you at random intervals, in elevators, during lunch, once at 2 in the morning in the parking lot of a Target in Fairfax. You pass every time. Your first assignment is not a kill. They don't give you those yet. They give you something worse. An observation. A man in Prague you are to follow for 11 days and produce a pattern of life report, where he eats, who he smiles at, which side of the bed he sleeps on. You are being trained to see people the way a doctor sees a tumor. Not cruel, just clinical. You fly commercial, economy. A different last name on your passport than the one on your driver's license, than the one on your lease. You stop keeping count. Prague in February is the color of old teeth. Gray stone, gray sky, gray river. You rent a flat above a butcher's shop, and you start watching. The target is a 60-year-old economist. He feeds pigeons. He reads the same Czech newspaper every morning in the same cafe. You find yourself almost liking him. Day 9. You finish the report, 47 pages, every habit, every weakness, every hour of his day charted. You send it through the dead drop. You fly home. 3 weeks later, Kessler mentions him in passing. Past tense. You don't ask what happened. You already know what happened. You wrote the map that told them where to put the pin. The second assignment comes 8 months later. Istanbul. This one is different. This one, they tell you, you're not just watching. You meet the target at a hotel bar. You are someone else for the evening, a Canadian mining consultant with a convincing LinkedIn and a passable accent. He buys you a drink. You buy him 3. By the time he asks where you're really from, you've already switched his phone for an identical one and walked it out in your jacket pocket. He didn't notice. Men in expensive suits rarely notice things that aren't expensive. You hand off the phone to Kessler at the Istanbul airport. She doesn't thank you. She just says, "Good, your flight's in 40 minutes. You're Canadian again until Frankfurt." You start to understand the rhythm. It's not patriotism. It's not adventure. It's not even revenge. It's process. Wake up, become someone, extract the thing, go home, become someone else. Don't think about the first one too hard. You are good at this. That is the most disturbing sentence in your own head. Kessler gives you a performance review at the 1-year mark. It is 3 sentences long. Adaptable, unsentimental, recommend expanded portfolio. You frame it in your head like a diploma. You don't frame it on any wall. You don't have any walls that are yours yet. The assignments start coming closer together. Budapest, Vienna. A week you barely remember in Lagos. You stop unpacking between trips. You live out of a black duffel and a second phone that only rings with instructions. Somewhere around your 3rd month of this, you stop dreaming. Not metaphorically, literally. Your brain stops producing dreams. You mention it to Kessler. She says that's normal. She says it means the training took. You have a moment, one night in a hotel in Warsaw, where you see yourself in a bathroom mirror and realize you don't remember your own last name. Not the fake one, the real one. It comes back in a few seconds, but those few seconds teach you something. The thing they're sanding down isn't just the surface. End of level 2. You are no longer a candidate. You are, officially, an asset. That word is not a compliment. An asset is a thing that can be used, transferred, depreciated, and eventually written off. You will remember this sentence later, much later. Level 3, the operator. 2 years in, you are no longer one person pretending to be others. You are several people who occasionally remember they share a body. The agency calls this operational maturity. You call it Tuesday. The portfolio Kessler recommended, expanded. Beirut, Moscow, Berlin. 3 operations in 14 months. 3 completely different versions of you, none of them you. All of them very convincing. You're still alive. That part is going well. Beirut comes first. You spend 6 weeks pretending to be a Lebanese-American oil consultant. Linen shirts, bad knees from too much walking. A wife back in Houston who doesn't exist, but who you can describe in unsettling detail when asked. The target is a man who funds car bombs. The agency wants to know who funds him. You become his friend. That part takes about 10 days. He's lonely. Lonely men are the easiest mark there is. You eat dinner at his house. You meet his children. His wife serves you tea with too much sugar and asks where you grew up. You answer in detail. You have memorized a childhood that did not happen. The wife is kind. The children are funny. The man laughs at your bad jokes. You take notes in your head the entire time. The op closes on a Tuesday morning. You leave Beirut on the 6 a.m. flight. By the time your plane lands in Frankfurt, 4 people are dead in a coordinated raid based on the intelligence you provided, including the man. The wife and children are not on the list. You check. You do not feel relief about that. You do not feel anything about that. Moscow is harder. Moscow is always harder. You are working with a Russian asset, former Spetsnaz, defected 10 years ago, one of the most useful sources the agency has east of the Urals. He hates you on sight. He hates everyone on sight. It is, somehow, comforting. Honesty in this line of work is a rare currency. The target this time is a piece of hardware, a drive. Sitting in the office of a former GRU colonel who now sells weapons to whoever pays. You break into his apartment at 3 a.m. The Russian asset stays in the car. He reminds you, before you go in, that if you get caught, he leaves. You tell him you would expect nothing less. He almost smiles. Almost. The drive is in a wall safe behind a portrait of Putin. You think to yourself, of course it is. You take the drive. You leave a duplicate. You walk out the front door at 3:47 a.m., holding a paper bag of groceries you bought from a 24-hour store across the street, in case anyone sees you leaving. Nobody sees you leaving. The Russian asset drops you at the airport without saying goodbye. A week later, Kessler tells you he was found dead in a Moscow apartment that wasn't his. Suicide, officially. 2 bullets. The official report does not address the math. You think about the man who almost smiled. You do not say anything. You file it. Berlin is supposed to be the easy one. You are working a German banker who launders money for arms dealers. The agency wants names. The plan is meet, charm, gather, leave. You meet a man named Tarjei at a bar in Kreuzberg the night before the op. He is your Norwegian counterpart. He's been doing this for 19 years. He looks at you across the table, pale, gaunt, eyes that have buried their own friends, and he says one sentence to you. You should leave this work before you forget which version of yourself was the original. You do not have an answer. You do not have an answer because you are not entirely sure he is wrong. The Berlin op goes perfectly. You charm the banker over 3 dinners. You collect 6 names, 2 account numbers, and a bonus, a flash drive he leaves in his coat pocket while in the bathroom. You hand off the intel to Kessler in a Zurich train station. You do not see Tarjei again. You hear 8 months later that he retired to a cabin in Norway and shot himself in November. Standard rate of attrition for 19-year operators, Kessler tells you when you ask. She tells you this the way other people might mention rain. You go home to D.C. You sit on the couch in the apartment you have lived in for nearly 3 years, and you cannot remember the last time you used the kitchen. The black duffel bag is at your feet. The second phone is on the nightstand. You reach for the duffel. You stop. You sit there for a long time. You think about the Lebanese man's children. You think about the Russian asset who almost smiled. You think about Tarjei in his Norwegian cabin in November. You think about how much of you is still you. The math is not encouraging. You start dreaming again. Not normal dreams. Not the dreams of your civilian self. Operational dreams. Surveillance dreams. You dream that you are watching yourself from across a street, and the version of you being watched does not know which name to answer to. You wake up at 4 a.m., which has become your default. You do not mention the dreams to Kessler. You suspect she already knows. The phone on the nightstand rings. It is the second phone. It only rings with instructions. You let it ring 4 times before you pick up. That is the longest you have ever waited. You don't know what that means yet. You will, soon. End of level 3. You are not just an asset anymore. You are an operator.
the most expensive grade of asset the agency owns. Highly trained, highly useful, highly replaceable. That last part is not in the briefings, but you have started to understand it anyway.
Level 4, the liability. You don't get a warning. The ending arrives wearing the same clothes as everything else. Kessler calls on a Wednesday, not the second phone, the first one. She has always had that number. Georgetown Cafe, mismatched chairs. She arrives with no file, no laptop, no portfolio. That's when you know. She slides an envelope across the table, plain, white, no markings. Inside, a passport, dark green, a name you've never used, cash, an address, a key. No mission parameters, no objective. Just a life, pre-assembled, waiting. She looks at you and says, "You've been an exceptional asset. The agency thanks you for your service." 11 words after everything. You open the passport. Your face stares back, a blank white oval, same as always. Some things don't change with the cover identity. 3 days later, 1 carry-on, 3 shirts, the dark green passport. The black duffel is still in the apartment. You left it. Every version of you that packed it is gone. The new city is quiet, coastal. The apartment has a kitchen. You use it. You sit at the window and watch the street below. You cannot stop. You will never stop. But the phone on the nightstand is just a phone now. It rings sometimes. Wrong numbers. You let it ring as many times as you want. You look in the bathroom mirror. Same face, same fractures. Not worse, not better. Just there. Permanent. The record of what it cost. You are not a candidate, not an asset, not an operator. You are not officially anything, which is the first true thing about you in a very long time. The street keeps moving. You watch it anyway. You always will.